All right, we got a very special guest coming up on the show. Let's go to Josh Pate with more.
Yeah, the big news is I'm not the special guest, but Nebraska head coach Matt Rhule is the special guest, which was a sentence, by the way, Coach Rhule, that I did not project to be coming out of my mouth this time a month ago, but yet there you are in Lincoln. You're sitting here with a top 30 class as the day rolls on. The first thing I want to ask is, do you think you've slept more than like 15 hours combined the last month, and what has this process been like since you got on the ground there?
It's been a sprint. It's been a lot, but I'm very grateful to the staff that we have here. Those guys got here, the staff that was here running recruiting, and just kind of got to work. You know, there's good players here in Nebraska that were already committed. There's good players across the country that had interest, and I'm really pleased with what we've done.
To a different generation, I found some programs like Nebraska mean different things. And so with the younger generation, when you're selling Nebraska to them in the limited time that you've been able to get to work and work on that, how do you sell this program and what it can be?
Yeah, you know, I wasn't sure till I got out there, and I found that there's a lot of power in this logo right off the bat. You know, obviously the programs, we're not where we want to be right now, but I think for guys that, you know, that want to compete at the highest level, you know, we're not trying to get Nebraska to a place that it's never been. We're just trying to get it back to, you know, where it's been before. And I think all across the country, you know, young people looked at our track record at Temple and at Baylor, having coached in the NFL. Everything that they want to do, we've been a part of. We'll help them get a great education, come play in front of an elite fan base, elite facilities, you know, help them win a championship and send them off to the NFL. And so that sold pretty well, and it's because it's real and it's all able to happen here.
The calendar says it's not been all that long since you were in the college game at Baylor. That's what the calendar says. Reality of the way our world has changed says it's night and day, even from when Matt Rhule was at Baylor to when Matt Rhule is now at Nebraska. So when you walk back in the college door and you looked around at what all's changed in NIL and the portal, how much did it open your eyes?
You know, to your point, it's an elite difference, a big difference. But you know what? I think the core fundamental things. You know, at the end of the day, you know, obviously the transfer portal's there. You know, young people the guys can go somewhere else if they're not excited to be there. Obviously, there is NIL. There's opportunities to capitalize on who you are. But what I found is that whether it's the NFL, college, high school, you know, players want to go somewhere where they're being coached, where they're cared about, where they have a chance to do things at a high level. And so, for me, coming back from the NFL, relationships are the most important. If someone only wants to come play for us and play for me because you know what we can, you know, or someone else can help them with NIL, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone that wants to come here and be part of the family, that wants to come here and fight, scratch and claw for us to win a championship. Someone that wants to become an NFL player, not just an NFL player, a great NFL player. And if they're all about those things, if they're about football, it's going to be right for us. And I certainly understand that we're in a new day and age, and we're trying our best to be elite at that because the players deserve it. But I do believe that fit is still the number one thing to make guys have success.
I'm scrolling through lists of guys who have signed that you and I can officially talk about, and Malachi Coleman's paperwork is in. Tell me about what you see in him as a player, because we list him as an athlete, so I could see him in a number of places. How do you see him?
I think he's a wideout. I think Malachi, you know, at his size, at 6'4", the length that he has, the athleticism that he has, the competitiveness that he has, you know, he's a 10-3 young man. And so, to me, I think he has the ability to play all over the field on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't think that precludes him. You know, I've had a lot of success over the years moving guys around, you know, taking guys from offense to defense, taking guys like Hassan Reddick from safety to eventually to D-end, and watch them go make a ton of money. So the future's bright for Malachi. But the biggest thing for me is I see him coming in and helping us right off the bat on the offensive side of the ball and competing to be one of our elite receivers.
There's a beautiful aspect to this for people who love the history of the game. You beat Colorado amongst other contenders for his services. You've got Colorado on the schedule next year. All of a sudden, people who love the history of this game are looking and saying, Nebraska, Colorado. That's the way that thing used to feel, huh? What does it mean, just specifically to kind of rekindle what used to be with those two programs?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations to Deion Sanders. You know, he's a iconic. Matter of fact, we had a recruiting weekend this past weekend, and they had the video games up, and there's Prime, with his hands out, as a player. And I'm like, can we get the other team's coaches off the screen? So he'll do a great job at Colorado, and you're right, it is fun. As we were preparing for this job, my wife and kids and I, watching those great games in the 80s and 90s, and Coach McCartney and obviously Coach Osborne and then Coach Solich and many others did. So I think it's great for college football. We want to be great in the Big Ten, and I'm sure they'll do a great job in the Pac-12.
I did want to get this one in before we get you out of here. Nebraska head coach Matt Rhule joining us. Jeff Sims, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring his name up coming in there via the transfer portal. He's a guy that when he first flashed on the scene with Georgia Tech, did some big things. They had an upset or two. His career ended up what it ended up being at Georgia Tech, but what do you see in terms of the package he brings and what he could potentially do for you?
Well, I told Jeff I feel like I've known him. Jeff Collins, who was the head coach there, is a great friend of mine. Worked together. He came in to Temple after I was the head coach, and I even came and visited them at Baylor when they first got the job. So I've watched him play a ton. I watched him play while I was in the NFL. To me, he's the total package. He's an NFL player, and he's an even better person. And so I think he's obviously a dual threat quarterback, but he can beat you throwing the football. And so when we got him, that was really, really big for us. He's going to attract a lot of attention, and I think make us a legitimate threat with the competition.
Coach, those of us who love the college game first and foremost are happy to have you back in our game. We appreciate you taking some time to join us. Good luck in Lincoln.
Thank you so much. Go Big Red.
That guy has had a plateful the past month, and he did not take time off. Some guys, when they're out at one place, they take some time to recharge the batteries. Dan Mullen is, I think, doing an excellent job, putting on a kind of a master class on how to do it that way. Matt Rhule wanted to get right back in. He got right back in at Nebraska. You've been behind the curtain, and so you've seen the mechanisms behind the scenes and the way it works. But the way it works for a new staff is even different. And you just you scoop whatever you can scoop, and you're trying to put together a staff. You're trying to hire off-field guys. You're trying to install a culture. Oh, and by the way, I need to go get the portal guys, and I need to try and put together a recruiting class today.
I mean, you just said it. That is the reality of being a new staff at a new place and everything that you have to incorporate. I think the most important part for them is getting the right people in the building in terms of your coaches, your 10 assistants that you can have. And then you talk about the support staff as well. And obviously being somebody who's a former support staff member, there's been an additional investment on that side, especially in the Power 5 and in the way that the game is rapidly changing. And not to mention, Josh, when you get into this December calendar, December 5th, the transfer portal window, which this was the first year that we've been through this process, imagine having to put a staff together, go out, put a process together, put a board together, identify your top priority targets, and then, oh, hey, by the way, the transfer portal window is going to open up at the same time that you have to go out on the road during a winter contact period and go in-home with a lot of players that you're going to see for the first time. So it's a lot of different things happening, a lot of bullets flying, and a lot that these guys got to go through in just a short amount of weeks.
The way the college football calendar is structured in December is embarrassing. A lot of coaches, they all say it behind the scenes. They don't want to sound like they're whining out front, so I say it for them as much as I can. Nobody who understands what it takes to operate an athletic department or football program had a say in putting together this calendar. That's blatantly obvious. It is what it is for now. We'll see what kind of changes are made in the future. But to go back to the point you just made, if you walk in, we don't fire folks at Pay State. We just never do. But if there was some untold reason why we needed to make a coaching change, and I bring in the new guy, I want him to hire the best staff possible as quick as possible. But the catch-22 there is, if you're putting together your choice of A-list candidates, they're on staffs that have really meaningful games down the stretch, and you may not be able to pluck them until January, which means you're operating with a skeleton crew during the most pivotal time of roster construction. It's gross, but it is what it is.